The passing of the Alter Rebbe happened on Chaf Daled Teves. Happened Meitzi Shabbos, Chaf Daled Teves. The Tzemach Tzedek, when he records this, mentions, interestingly enough, not that it's the first day of Parshas Ve'era, but rather that the Alter Rebbe's passing was Chaf Daled Teves Meitzi Shabbos Parsha Shmes, emphasizing the connection of the passing of the Alter Rebbe to Parsha Shemos. Specifically, we know that the Alter Rebbe passed away running away from Napoleon in a state of what you and I would refer to as Golus. He was running away from where he lived to somewhere that was not his proper place. Interestingly enough, Parsha Shemos is also a Parsha, obviously very connected to the idea of Golus. Parshas V'yigash and V'yechi, the parshas before, at the end of Bereshis, talk about the positive and good life of the Jews in Mitzrayim, the best 17 years of Yaakov Avinu's life. Parshas Ve'era and Bei, the two parshas that follow in Sefer Shmos, are connected to the beginning of the Geula, the Makos, that's Parshas Ve'era, and the ultimate Geula itself, and that's Parshas Bei. So Shmos is actually a Parsha of Golus, just like Chaf Daled Teves. Now, what's the connection between these two? We know the Alter Rebbe tells us that the passing of a tzaddik, so all of his deeds in this world come to their highest level, which is very fascinating. That means that the Alter Rebbe's deeds, indeed the Rebbe mentions very, very clearly, the last Yud Tes Kislev of the Alter Rebbe, which was a little over a month before his passing, was spent in Piena, in the city of Golus where the Alter Rebbe passed away. So Yud Tes Kislev, the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus, the last one, that means on a certain level the highest, most powerful Yud Tes Kislev of the Alter Rebbe was spent in Golus. So the connection of the Alter Rebbe's Aveda to Golus is obviously very, very powerful. In order to understand all this, the Rebbe explains in a fascinating way the idea of Parsha Shmos. Parsha Shmos has a certain tension relative to the idea that it's connected to Geula, because interestingly enough, Eile Shmos B'nai Yisrael, these are the names of the Jewish people, and we learn three things about those names. The Shvatim, as long as they were alive, then those people who were named at the beginning of the Parsha, and the Parsha is named after their naming, as long as they were alive, there was no Golus. Secondly, the Rebbe points out that their names are mentioned as a sign of dearness. Hibosan, the Eibusha calls them out because of his love for them. And also, the Medrash tells us, Al Shem Gulosin Shel Yisrael Nikru. Every name relates to an Indian in Geula. So we see very interesting that Parsha Shmos, even though it's a Parsha of Golus, is really, on a deeper level, very, very powerfully connected to the Geula. The name of the Parsha itself is powerfully connected to Geula. The unique nature of Avoda in Golus is that Golus forces a Jew to connect to the deepest level of their neshama in order to maintain a connection to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Etzem neshama, Yechida shebenefesh. In a time of revelation, so then it's natural to serve a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I don't need any special powers, so to speak. Since there's a tremendous revelation, it seems perfectly reasonable, al pitam v'das, based on intellect, to serve a Kadosh Baruch Hu, because that's what's obvious and revealed in the world. So in the times of Beis HaMikdash, the service of a Kadosh Baruch Hu was somewhat natural. What's unique about the time of Golus? The time of Golus is the time when we see the most powerful revelation of the connection of the Jew to the Eibishter Yechida Shebenefesh. The Rabbi doesn't mention this in the Sicha, but this is very powerfully connected to the whole notion of Purim, right? What do we know? We know that the Kabbalist Torah at the time of Purim was greater to a certain degree than the Kabbalist Torah, than the acceptance of the Torah at the time of Matan Torah itself. Why? Kimu v'kiblu. They established that which they had only begun to accept at the time of Torah. They fully accepted at the time of Purim. Why? So, the Frierdiker Rebbe explains, and the Rebbe explains it at great length in the famous Maimer Vata Tetzava, the Mesiras Nefesh, the self-sacrifice. The fact that it was made obvious at the time of Purim of this absolutely unbreakable connection between the Jewish people and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Azoi v'nit anderish. This is the way it is, and there is no other way. Even though revealed reality might be somewhat contrary and antithetical to the whole idea of a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the revealed reality we see seems to be but much not a state of revelation, a state of complete concealment. That's the nature of Golus. It's specifically there that we see the most powerful revelation. This, the Rebbe says in a fascinating explanation, is also the whole idea of a name. When do we need a name? So, a name is very fascinating. On one hand, the name doesn't have anything to do with who I am, to the extent that I don't need a name. I only need a name for other people to call me, but relative to myself, I don't need a name. As a matter of fact, I don't use the name. I don't call myself by my name. My name is relative to other people. On the other hand, when a person faints, we call their name, and it very often revives them, because the name is connected to their etzem. In that sense also, the name represents a level of reality that when in a revealed state, it's not so necessary. When a person's awake, they don't necessarily need a name. Again, they need a name for someone to refer to them, but for them, relative to themselves, they don't need a name. But when they sink into a state of, so to speak, concealment, they faint, then their name becomes of great importance, because their name touches the essence of them and brings them back to this place. Chassidus is the Yechida Sheb'Torah. Chassidus is the etzem of the Torah. It's that aspect of the Torah that reaches into the depths of reality and illuminates it. So to speak, when the Jewish people are asleep, they've fainted, Chassidus is the name, Chassidus is the etzem, Chassidus is that which wakes them up and connects them to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the most powerful way. Even when on a revealed level you might think they're not as powerfully connected, Chassidus reaches the place of concealment. So there's a very powerful connection between the passing of the Alter Rebbe and Parsha Shemos. The whole idea of Golus on the revealed level is a time of concealment, but the inner purpose of Golus is ultimately the revelation of Yechida Shebenefesh, the revelation of the most powerful aspect of our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our essential connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that place where we can't be disconnected. A parable for that place is, no matter what it is that someone might say in terms of trying to convince me to disconnect, this connection is immutable. Trying to disconnect the Jew on that level is like saying to someone, I'll let you live if you let me cut off your head. Well, I can't live without my head, so that's a ridiculous offer. It's that connection that spurs the Mesiras Nefesh, the self-sacrifice of Golus. And it's revealed most powerfully in Golus. And therefore the purpose of Golus is the revelation of that connection, which is really the connection of the ultimate Geula, the Geula Mitis V'Shlema. And so the Panemius of Golus is actually the revelation that comes afterwards, the Geula that comes afterwards. And that's the connection between the Alter Rebbe, Chassidus, that Torah which reaches into the darkest place and illuminates it, and Parsha Shemos. The Golus, But the Golus is really a name. It's really that which reaches into the place where I might be asleep and wakes me up. May we learn Chassidus and bring about Hafatzas HaMayonis, the spreading of the well springs of Chassidus, such that we see Tekef Umiyad, the transformation of the Golus to Geula, and we go from Parsha Shmeis into Ve'eda, into Boi, but not in a 3-week process in reading the Torah, but that it happens in our lives down here, Lamata Miyasar Tfachim, in the physical world, Tekef Umiyad, Mamish, Mamish, Mamish.